thank you all for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar topic is about blue is the new green, coral conservation and climate change. We are very happy to invite Professor Akopra from the School of Life Sciences from the CRHK to talk about this topic. Professor Choi is the research assistant professor at the Chinese University, and her research areas about the coral conservation and the relationship between the climate change and the restoration. And she's now very actively engaged in public outreach and the education activities on marine and coral conservation in Hong Kong. And she also launched an outreach program called Coral Academy to raise the students' awareness and the public awareness and inspire them to do something good to the marine conservation. So let's give the time to Professor Choi to talk about more about the relationship between the coral conservation and climate change. Professor Choi, please.
Hi, thanks, Kathy, for the very nice introduction. So yes, I'm Apple. Hi, everyone. I'm a research assistant professor from School of Life Sciences of CHK. So I'm real happy to be here today and have this opportunity to share with you a bit about climate change and coral conservation. And more specifically, I'll actually talk about the degradation and restoration of coral communities in Hong Kong, and especially to talk about the work that we have been doing so far on coral restoration and as well as public outreach. So first, some very brief introduction about my team, my lab in CHK. Our research actually addresses two main questions. The first one is how will project future climate change affect corals that are currently present in marginal coral environments like Hong Kong. What is marginal environment? Later on, I will discuss, elaborate a little bit about that. And so far, our work mainly focus on the early life stages of corals, the baby corals. So the second question is, what can we do to, enhance the resilience of the corals and then perhaps use those corals in active coral restoration? So outside the lab, my team also focused a lot on community outreach in Hong Kong, trying to raise community awareness as well. So that's us. Now, right now, you're looking at a picture of coral reefs in Australia. So this is a very famous Great Barrier Reef. And of course, this is also what we usually see when we look at the picture of a healthy coral reef system. Something really incredibly colorful and beautiful. And very often, people describe these coral reefs as the underwater cities or the rainforests of the oceans. And they are indeed the most biologically diverse habitats of our oceans, providing essential ecosystem goods and services to hundreds of millions of people around the world. And we humans actually rely heavily on coral reefs. However, the problem is, despite that importance, many coral reefs around the world are now in quite poor conditions, and many of them are actually declining. When we talk about the threats broadly, there are these stressors that are impacting on reef, like locally, globally. We have, for example, overfishing, pollution, sedimentation. More globally speaking, we talk about climate change, we talk about elevated seawater temperature, ocean acidification, etc. And actually, among all these different stressors, rising sea surface temperature is generally recognized as the most immediate and widespread threats to reef resilience, having some very extremely devastating impacts on reef all around the world. For example, coral bleaching. Well, very often we will, when we watch the news, watch the televisions, a lot of time when we talk about corals, it's not something like good news about corals. It's usually about, coral bleaching happens again and again, and causing huge mortality. So what is coral bleaching actually? Bleaching is actually a stress response by a coral, because it's a stress response. So that's why scientists are very concerned about this. So coral, as I'm sure you know, they actually have this tiny microscopic algae that live inside the coral tissues called zooxanthellae. So this is actually a close-up of a coral, the animal. They're actually algae live inside the coral itself. So this algae give the coral, not only these algae give the coral most of its color, they're also very important for the nutrition of the coral, because these algae, they photosynthesize. So what happened is, under elevated seawater temperature, the balance between the algae and the coral host goes off. And then the coral just expel these symbiotic partners. And this is actually very difficult for the coral, because when they expel their symbiotic partners, means that they have also lost their main source of food to survive. And so if the bleaching is prolonged, then the coral will starve. Okay, and when they are starved, which means that the coral itself is more susceptible to death and disease. So healthy coral, we have bleached coral because of environmental stressors like elevated temperature, and then we have dead coral. And of course, sometimes the coral can actually recover from bleaching only if, for example, the water temperature returns to normal before it's too late. And clearly, and unfortunately, with these massive bleaching events occur and reoccur in a very short time scale that cause huge bleaching and mortality event over the last decades, actually the future of corals is not looking very good. For example, this is also the Great Barrier Reef, and this time you can't see the very beautiful reefs anymore. This time is the dead, degraded reef. So people actually start to worry, how and, for example, what do we really do about this so as to try to secure the future of corals? And we'll get back to that. So now back to Hong Kong first. This is a very nice video. I always like to show this video. Now, believe it or not, this video is actually taken in Hong Kong. So this is Hong Kong. So you can see it here. We do not have the very extensive reef structure that, for example, other tropical reefs, tropical area that they have, the coral reefs. But we do have corals here in Hong Kong that form these, scattered coral communities along the coast. And you can also see from this video that our coral coverage can be very good as well. It can even go up to like 80% coverage in some area, like this video. Very nice ones. So now, Hong Kong marginal environment for coral growth. People usually describe Hong Kong as a marginal coral environment. So what does it mean? It actually means that corals communities here are actually living close to one or more of their survival thresholds. For example, corals in Hong Kong, they actually experience a large fluctuation in water temperature year round. For example, in our winter temperature, it can actually drop down to 14 degrees Celsius, which is actually quite cold for corals. And because of the turbidity, Hong Kong is actually very famous for our murky water. And these photos and last videos, of course, was taken in one of those very, very nice days. Excellent visibility happens only, for example, several days in a year. But on average, this is something that the reality looks like. The site, majority of time actually look like this, quite turbid, you can say. So because of this, turbidity, Hong Kong corals are usually found in much shallow waters. And that's why, because they need light, the algae need light for photosynthesis. So that's why Hong Kong corals are usually found in quite shallow waters. And that's why they're also frequently exposed to salinity fluctuation due to heavy rain or runoff. So altogether, life is definitely not easy for corals in Hong Kong. So that's why Hong Kong is actually named as one of those marginal environments for coral growth. However, despite being a marginal coral environment, not that optimal environment for corals, in Hong Kong, we actually have 84 species of reef-building hard corals that can be found in our waters. And these corals, they might even have an important implication on the future of corals under global warming or changing climates. Why is that? Well, because of you can imagine because of all these suboptimal environment or the conditions that they are already experiencing, those corals, they might have already been well adapted or acclimatized to more stressful environment, for example, through generations of selection or experience from past exposure. So today I do not have time to share with you the examples on the stress tolerance of Hong Kong corals. But here I just want to emphasize that despite the corals in Hong Kong, they might be potentially tolerant to global threats, for example, like elevated seawater temperature, and there are actually growing evidence supporting that. Despite being potentially tolerant, Hong Kong is actually one of those places where we also suffer a lot from coral decline. But this time, it's not like elsewhere. It's not because of like elevated seawater temperature, bleaching, massive mortality. In our case, very interesting because our coral decline that occurred so far are mostly due to local factors, local stressors. Local stressors, for example, we talk about coastal development, water pollution, overfishing, etc. So, so today I'm actually going to share with you this case study, which happened not really far away from our university, the CHK. It happened actually in along this Tolo Harbour and Channel area in northeastern side in Hong Kong. I always like to use this as one of the example for sharing because it shocked me every time I talk about it. Basically, the first time when I hear about the history, I do not believe it, and that's why I try to find out those literature to actually find out whether or not this is true or what. So what's that about? Well, along Tolo Harbour and Channel, well, there actually has been a record of very, very high coral coverage. How high? It's like up to 70–80% coverage. 70–80% coverage, which is just equivalent or very similar to what the video you just saw in my earlier slide. Very nice, extensive, very high coverage. But what happened was then due to pollution and sedimentation that is caused by, of course, the urbanization and coastal development in surrounding areas like Tai Po, like Sha Tin area. The coral coverage, you can see, it dropped all the way from 70–80% to down all the way to below 2% and someplace even 0% in coverage in just a few years' time. So this really surprised me because corals were once there, but then because of water pollution, they were gone. And this was actually described as the first marine ecological disaster in Hong Kong. And after this disaster, of course, our government has put in lots of effort to improve the water quality in these areas, Tolo Harbour and Channel. But the fact is that the coral just never come back. No sign of recovery at all. Even nowadays, the water quality has improved a lot already. And our most recent data also shows that reveal kind of the reasons why the corals just never come back. The first is that there were not much of the remaining corals to grow back, to regenerate, like to restore itself as a coral ecosystem. The secondly is that there is a very low recruitment of corals in the area. You cannot find any small corals or baby corals in those areas. So which means that recovery, natural recovery, it seems to be very difficult or actually unlikely in these areas. So what we can, so actually lesson learned is here is that coral communities could be so easily be destroyed in such a short period of time, and yet natural recovery could be so difficult and sometimes not possible at all. So now with the improvement of water quality, and after that many years of improved water quality, we decided that perhaps it's really time for us to do something about it, to do something about this site. And that's where we came in. And this is I'm not sure if you've been here before. This is actually our marine science laboratory of CUHK. And what we do here is that we actually culture corals for restoration study. So the concept of like culture coral is like, it's really like tree plantation, you know. If you want to replant a denuded area or a huge or a site denuded without any trees, you like to plant some trees, you like to carry out some tree plantation. First, of course, you need some small plants or seedlings to begin with, right? So when we talk about restoration, restore corals, we also have to talk about the source of the materials, like where and how we can obtain the corals for outplanting in the very first place. And what we are doing right now is we culture corals for restoration studies in Hong Kong. And so how can we obtain the coral in the very first place? So there are actually two ways in general when we talk about coral propagation. If you look into the left-hand side of these slides, we talk about asexual propagate corals, fragments, and the right-hand side, we talk about sexual propagate corals, the baby corals. So what does it mean? Well, I also always like to use plant as an example. If we use plant as an example, asexual fragments is just like stem cutting. Okay, you cut a portion of the plant, you grow them, and eventually it will become a new plant. It's very similar, the idea for corals. Obtain the fragment, we grow them, and it becomes a new coral. And on the other hand, these sexual propagated corals, the baby corals, is more like growing plants all the way from seeds, okay? But of course, they're a little bit different, but the idea is very similar. So, and overall, the restoration in Hong Kong actually is still, I would say, in this infancy. So most of the studies here in Hong Kong, we have used asexually propagated fragments only. The reason is very straightforward because it's easier. These so-called asexually propagated corals, basically, they're actually broken portion of the coral colony in the field. So these fragments, they fell off from the coral. They are in the sites. So these fragments, we just go out and collect them. People actually give them a very beautiful name, call them corals of opportunity, meaning that if you don't save those fragments, they may probably die in the natural environment, because those fragments, if they cannot reattach them onto substrate, they may roll over or just covered by the sediment, and they will eventually die. So we just go out and collect these fragments. We collect them, and then we further fragment them into smaller pieces, and then grow them in our land-based nursery or field-based nursery, allow them to recover a little bit, and then we'll then take them out and outplant directly onto some natural substrates of those previously degraded sites for restoration purposes. So some of our ongoing projects, which is happening right now in Tolo Channel, one of the degraded sites, so we actually have different species of corals outplant onto the natural substrate, and basically after 3 years, we achieved over 90% survival, which is really a very good number, because remember, this site, Tolo Channel, it is not even within, or it's not even inside the marine park or protected area. So to be able to achieve such high survival over 30 years is really a very good sign, and is actually a very good start. So not only we look into the site, look into the survival, of course, we look into the growth as well. So these are two quick examples of the corals that has been outplanted. Just after a year, you can see that the coral, they just grow so well in the field, especially for the lower ones. It's called the Akopra Coral. It's a branch form corals. They grow like crazy, like 30-fold increase in size per year for these corals, roughly 10 centimeters growth in diameter per year. Platygyra, it is a kind of massive form coral. It grows much slower because of their different in growth form. So this one fold per year, roughly 3 centimeters in diameter per year. So some corals grow faster, some grow slower. This is actually their different survival strategy. So it's actually very normal, different growth for different species of corals. And I think most important is that they survive. And with our corals outplanted in the field, we can already beginning to see them being able to bring in biodiversity. For example, you can see this picture here. We see seahorse hang around the corals that we outplanted, which is a really beautiful picture. Butterfly fish, for those of you who knows, butterfly fish is actually closely associated with corals, and it's actually an indicator of the coral health in those particular area. I've never seen any butterfly fish before in those total channel degraded sites, but after we have outplanted the corals for like 2 years, we start to see these butterfly fish coming back, and right now we have 2 butterfly fish that always like to hang around in this our coral outplanted area. So all these actually kind of indicate that once the problem is solved, meaning that the cause of degradation has been controlled or improved, water quality improved, there's actually great potential for restoration. And of course, on top of the asexually propagated coral fragments, my team also do massive coral culturing using sexually propagated corals approach for restoration in Hong Kong. So it actually involves the collection of the gametes from corals during spawning. We collect the eggs and sperm in the field and then bring them back to the lab. We culture them, we help them fertilize, and then we culture them into these larvae and then settle them as baby corals onto the substrate that we provide. So these time-lapse video actually shows you how they carry out their early embryonic development, which is really some very beautiful time-lapse photos I really love taking every year. So these little ones, they are so small in size. They're just like 1 mm in diameters to begin with. And because they're so small, we have to culture them in our lab nursery for like 2 years, allow them to grow into much larger in size. Like after 2 years, it reached like 2 or 3 centimeters in diameter. And then we use them for outplanting. So back in 2019, we have our first ever outplanting of these 2-year-old sexually propagated juvenile corals in Tolo Channel, the degraded sites for restoration purpose. I still remember we were like gambling, and we were like show hand, like all in. It either work or it doesn't. And we're of course very grateful that the research is actually quite promising as well. We have achieved almost like 90% of survival in the first year, and they are growing very well as well. So this one is called Akopra coral. And we also know that these sexual techniques going to work in Hong Kong, although it takes time, but it will work because we already have the example of successful outplanted corals being reproductive viable, which means that our baby become adults and then they spawn again. So they become father and mothers again. So our first successful case was 2019. Back then, we first witnessed our baby corals grow into adult, and then they spawn that year. So it took us 5 years to culture the to allow the coral babies to grow in order to turn into adults. But still, it is possible. It just takes some time. So the left one is actually called Akopra tumida, and the right-hand side is another Akopra species. It's Akopra pruinosa. So now what we need to do is a little bit of upscaling, and this is what we're trying to do. And another very nice picture I like to show to all of you. This one, this cute little baby. This is actually our second generation babies that we are now culturing in the lab. Very, very small. So this picture is actually taken on the microscope. What's mean by second generation babies, which means that their parents will actually culture them from eggs and sperm as well. So this is already our second generation. So which is very, very nice. So just a very quick summary of our restoration work in Hong Kong. Using asexual coral reproduction for restoration, this technique has proven to be quite successful in Hong Kong so far. The survival is very good. However, there's still some problem associated with restoration using just these asexual reproduction techniques. First, we talk about the source. The source are limited or might become limited in future because the source, if you can recall, we go out to the field to collect those naturally detached fragments. So it really depends on existing coral communities or existing coral colonies to provide us with the fragments. So imagine one day if there's no fragments available, which means that we don't have the coral source for outplanting, and it seems not to be a very long-lasting solution. And we also have to be aware of genetic diversity, because very often when people or when we break the coral, when we collect one fragments, we will break them into smaller pieces and then we culture them. So although it seems like we have quite a lot of corals to use as outplanting source for outplanting, however, they are genetically the same because they are clones, because we fragment them from one individual colony. So if one of them die due to unfavorable environmental conditions, for example, 1 year is too hot, one of them cannot survive because of the thermal stress, very likely the rest of them will die as well because they are genetically the same, they are clones. So that's why sexual coral reproduction for restoration is also very important to help with those restoration work. Because unlike those from fragments, when we talk about the baby corals from sexual reproduction, from the very beginning, we mix the gametes, the eggs and sperm from all parents together to create as much diversity as possible. So they are more genetically diverse than those generated from asexual fragments, because again, every individual is kind of are different in their genetic mix-up. So hopefully they are even more adaptable to environmental changes than those created from fragments. And this is actually very important because we want the corals to survive not only right now, but also in future. And we know that the environment is changing. Okay, of course we talk about climate change. We know that the environment is changing. So we just let our mother nature to determine which to survive in future. And so we just try our best to provide as much diversity as we can for restoration. And our ultimate goal is to not only restore corals, but the whole ecosystem. So, and it really takes time, but to be able to achieve very high survivorship is the first step, and it's actually a very good start here. So in the final few slides, I'd like to share with you some of our education outreach program. Being a coral scientist, there are actually lots of things that we can do to help save corals. For example, we talk about the work on coral restoration techniques. We can even increase the coral resilience to help them to have a better chance to survive or become more adaptive to future climate change. However, ultimately, if we do not address the fundamental problems of climate change, which is to reduce our carbon footprint, to improve coral health by addressing some local stressors, the future of coral reefs are not looking very good. So to help solve these coral crises, we really need to find ways to improve ocean literacy in our communities. educate people about coral ecosystems, that we have actually very nice coral ecosystems in Hong Kong, so that people will actually understand and cherish them, try to protect them, to reduce individual impacts on coral ecosystem, so as to secure a more sustainable future. So this leads to what our education outreach Coral Academy is about. So Coral Academy is actually an outreach program that we have launched back in 2018. So it was established with the aims of raising public's awareness and understanding of local marine ecosystem corals, connect people with nature through some first-hand experience with local corals, and try to empower them so that they will adjust their everyday life behavior and lifestyle to try to protect the marine environment. And throughout the years, we're actually very grateful to have received lots of support from the government, the NGOs, and some education groups to have launched some very cool program, workshops, citizen science program, public seminars for students and general public as well. So so in the year 2021 to 2022, we have reached over 3,000 students and teachers from like 22 schools through our various school-based outreach program. And our former secretary for the environment and also presidents and vice president of CHA also came and support our program, which is very, very encouraging. And one of the program we organize is called the School Nursery Coral Nursery Education Program. This program is actually very well received by the local secondary schools. So what this program is about, this is actually a one-year program. Basically what we do is we help the school to set up a coral tank in their school, and then of course they will help culturing some of our corals to be used for outplanting for restoration in Hong Kong. So it's like set up a nursery in this local secondary school. And of course, we ask the students to help take care of the corals so that they can gain some first-hand experience in coral culturing. And of course, we'll provide all sorts of training workshops to educate the students about the status, the threats of local corals, conservation and restoration work. So together with lots of other activities, not only like taking care of the corals, by visiting the natural habitats through these glass bottom boat tours, students actually become very excited to actually participate in this coral nursery program, because they knew that the coral that they kept in the school will eventually be returned back to the sea for restoration purposes. And of course, the students are also responsible to communicate this knowledge that they have learned, they have gained about corals to their school communities and the public as well. So this is really one very exciting program that's actually happening right now in some local secondary schools. And on top of the school, like students, community, we also, with the last year, with the support of WWF Hong Kong, we actually also, for our very first time, we organized a coral rescuer citizen science program for general public, because over the years, we actually received lots of inquiries asking us to offer programs, not just for secondary school, but for public, because they're so ready, they want to contribute themselves to local conservation work. So, and with the support of WWF, we finally managed to do it. It's a very short program, which lasts for like half a year last summer. So the idea was very similar. We let the diverse public, general public, to dive with us, to come with us and experience the whole coral restoration work firsthand, starting from collecting coral fragments to like actually help us to glue those fragments onto the a cement base and allow them to grow on the cement base, and then later use them for outplanting. So it will. Again, this is also a very well received program. They just love it, and they ask for even more program. So we hope to have the capacity to organize similar programs again in future. And also just this year happening right now as well. We're very excited. This is another very exciting project that aims to enhance students' engagement and teaching effectiveness in marine education using this 360 VR virtual reality. So what this one is really about, what did we do actually? We with the support of University Teaching Ground and University Teaching and Development Ground, and also the support of AFCD, we have produced 4 underwater 360 videos in Hong Kong. And these videos actually including the sites with very healthy communities in Hong Kong and also highly degraded coral communities in Hong Kong. So, and we have also designed some instruction manuals so that the students can actually conduct these virtual underwater survey themselves using the video and the VR headset and our education manual, and then later they can submit their data online. So this is actually a very fun program, allowing the students to kind of like a first-hand, underwater survey experience, which is very fun as well. So so that's it about, so those are some of the examples of the outreach program that we have. Hopefully there will be more to come in future. Finally, you've probably heard of these, SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. I would just like to close by saying that this is actually a decade of action. Okay, we need to prepare ourselves to meet this growing global environmental challenges that we are facing nowadays. And students, you can play a key role as well in moving forwards to a more sustainable society. So in our case, in our team, what we're trying our best to contribute is more related to these SDG 13 climate action, life below water, and also establish this partnership with different groups like government, green groups, so that we can help contributing into this, vision for a better future, a better world for the future. And obviously a lot more is needed as well. So yes, basically because of the time, I think this is all about it. And if you're interested in knowing more about Hong Kong coral communities, marine environmental education, I would love to share more with you, or you can simply visit our website. We have a website which is managed by my team, coralacademy.hk. We also have other online platform. We have Facebook, Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel. So some online resources are actually available on our website for public usage as well. So if you're interested, you can have a look at our website as well. So right, that's it. Thank you for listening, and questions and comments are highly welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Choi. So if you guys have any questions to Professor Choi, please feel free to type it in the chat box or the Q&A section, and she will help to answer it. And so we got a questions about what challenge have you faced in the journey of promoting coral conservation and awareness about the climate change to the public. So you have lots of the outreach program, and how can we sign up or contact you about this program too?
I think the challenge that we're facing right now, we have lots of ideas in our mind. We also like to, of course, as a lab in the university, our main duty, of course, is doing lots of coral research in Hong Kong. But at the same time, we also recognize the importance of public education, because conservation isn't about a small group of people doing lots of things, but with lots of people doing at least something together to generate big changes. So that's why we always recognize the importance of education outreach. I think the challenge right now so far our team have is the lack of manpower, lack of support. We need lots of support, and we need everybody to get involved. But I think in general, our program is actually very well received by the public and the students, and we hope to do more in future. Yeah.
So one of the participants would like to learn more about how to join your program or how to support your nursery program.
All right, so you can feel free to drop me an email, so we can keep in touch like after this presentation. And I'm not sure, perhaps if you're school teachers, perhaps if you want to join our school nursery program, then this year's we actually will call for application every school years, but this year is a bit special because last year is COVID, so we didn't have any opening again, like for this year's for the nursery program. But in the future, we will keep it running as well. So I'm not sure, but if you are simply a general public who like to get involved, I think the first start is to like our Facebook page, subscribe our YouTube channel so that you can keep the latest update. You will notice the latest update of our team. So yeah, I would say send me an email and see what we can do in future. Yeah.
So we got one more question is about the nursery program too. You have the nursery program that facing the secondary school students.
Yeah.
So in the current education system, how do you think the coral conservation education can be delivered in a more innovative way? Because this concept might be a bit hard for the secondary students to understand.
Yeah, I think definitely. So that's why we just let the students to take the responsibility to help with the coral culturing. I think we really focus on these first-hand experience, the experiential learning, because this is something we think is irreplaceable, because once you really put in effort in taking care of the corals, you will become so connected to the corals. You will build this emotional connectedness with these corals, and I think this is some experience that really can't be replaceable by simply reading books or etc. So we like to have to create this first-hand experience for the local schools, but of course because of the limited capacity of our team, we can only reach out to right now like 18 to like 20 local school. We like to expand this, of course, but I think this program for not only the school, they need to commit a lot. Our team also have to commit a lot because it's a one-year program. We have a very close contact with the school so that we can support them, like 24-hour support group for the school, so that we can help keep checking the coral health in the school. I think we also try our best to launch some very interesting activities like this. This is actually the first time we try to use virtual reality to help like bring students, to give them a virtual diving experience in Hong Kong. And because simply it's very hard to it's really a privilege to be able to learn diving. So it's not easy to bring everyone down to the water to witness the very healthy communities or degraded community firsthand. So this is actually a very nice start that and thanks, of course, for the university teaching grant, so that we are able to produce this manual and some 360 virtual video. And actually this program right now, we launched it in the university course first, but right now we have already sent this package to some of the secondary school. So some secondary school are also making use of this package to learn more about the marine environment. So I think in future there are really a lot of things, potential work to be done. So if you're a teacher, feel free to send me an email or keep in touch, so that yeah, I really like to work with the teacher to launch more exciting programs for our secondary school students. Yeah.
We got
some questions. How do you look upon the relationship between the Coral project and the larger SDG initiative?
How do I look? Sorry.
Look upon the relationship between the Coral project and the larger SDG initiative.
Well, I think, of course, what we've been doing is really highly relevant to the SDGs, especially when SDG, there's a whole part of, a huge part of it is like life below water and corals life below water and climate action and partners. But of course, there are a lot more that we haven't been able to cover. So actually, it requires joint efforts of different people, different groups to organize this activity so that we can all help contribute to achieving these sustainable development goals. And actually the UN, they actually declare like from last year, 2021, declare that this coming decade, these 10 years, it has to be dedicated to it's like a decade for restoration. I forgot the actual phrase, the decade for ecosystem restoration. The previous 10 years is really, they focus on biodiversity, but this coming 10 years is really for ecosystem restoration. So hopefully our work in Hong Kong can also contribute to the whole big picture in the world as well.
Yeah. In your fields, what is the special role of corals for Hong Kong?
The special role for corals in Hong Kong, well, I would say corals, they are actually, let's see if I have the slide. I haven't covered this slide. So I think corals are so important. You know, if we talk about corals as an ecosystem, they are really very important. I think we cannot just limit it to Hong Kong. Only because you know, corals are so important globally speaking as well, because corals is not just like an organisms in the water. I always like to use plant an example. If you look into just one single tree, perhaps it doesn't really give you a very big picture or means lots of things. But if you look into lots of trees that form this forest, then you can imagine that the biodiversity associated with it, or the etc. that comes with it. So in our case for corals, of course they're very important because it's like a nursery ground for a lot of marine organisms, and it's totally relevant to us because, you know, Hong Kong people, we like eating seafood, and a lot of marine organisms are actually closely associated with coral communities. And there are also some chemicals compound right now are actually, for example, some that are being used to develop to treat cancers are actually found from coral reefs and even coral. So there are huge potential and lots of great potential from simply by protecting coral communities or coral reefs in general. And of course, people like diving. And right now under COVID, we just can't travel like back in the old days. A lot of people enjoy a lot, like simply by snorkeling, diving in Hong Kong to enjoy the beauty. So definitely there are lots of value associated with those, not only because of the beauty, but the economic value as well. Right.
So we got one more question about the job opportunities for the coral conservation and did so locally. So any job or any opportunity for students that are studying marine science, or maybe someone want to be like you to do something good to the ocean?
Yeah, join my team. Well, I think there are definitely lots of passionate people from different organizations that are all contributing to local conservation issues, marine conservation issues, education. For example, we have great partners like from the government, from WWF, Ocean Park, and there are also lots of green groups. In terms of jobs opportunity, I think there are a lot. So if you're passionate, you can approach those green groups, etc. So there are lots of green groups I haven't been able to touch on in here, but there are actually lots of passionate local people are doing lots of good things for our marine environment as well. So yeah, green groups, NGOs, government, lots of different opportunities. And yeah, songwriting, yeah.
So what way do you think is the most impactful way to raise the public awareness about the ocean literacy? So like empowering them with enough knowledge, or just doing some experimental learning, or through storytelling?
Yeah, I always, you know, it's very difficult to create these or to promote individual lifestyle changes, the decision making, which is deeply embedded into our mind. That nowadays people like to be convenient, you know, in lots of ways. And I think to be able to promote behavior change, for me, I always stress on rebuild the connection of the people with the nature, you know, and how we do that to build the connection is by some of the first-hand experience. So it's not only knowledge, but to really let them fall in love with our marine environment, fall in love with corals. I myself, I love corals a lot. I always think they are very cute little organisms. So I think once they have this connection with corals, the lifestyle changes, everything, it will come eventually, naturally, I would say, yeah. But of course, we need questionnaires and other ways to find out whether or not there is actual behavior, lifestyle changes. So that's why when we launch different education program, we always invite our participants to, you know, fill out very, very long questionnaires to help us evaluate the effectiveness of the program and help us reflect and improve ourselves. And there's actually lots of things that we need to learn as well. Yeah.
I think some of them are very interested in joining your program or keep contact with you. So would you mind showing them the info slide?
Oh, right. Yeah. This thank you for listening slide, right?
Yes.
Please.
So please feel free to drop her the email about the program you're interested in joining, and like them on the social media page.
Yeah.
So
and if you are CUHK students, you can feel free to come and volunteer in our team.
So I think our time is up today.
All right, yes.
Let us do some promotion for our upcoming program. If you are interested in joining more about or learning more about different topic in social innovation, such as the impact investment or the social return on investment, please feel free to join. Join our HKSEC Academy, and don't forget to register for our upcoming session. We have posted the link about the post-webinar survey, so feel free to fill out the survey and give us some comment, just like Apple said. Just share your feeling or your thought with us. So thank you again for your time today, and give us a very interesting and meaningful presentation. Thank you all for joining too. So today is here. So bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.